welcome to this unusual basketball season. We decided to provide you with some Zoom lessons as well as some YouTube videos with some instruction on basketball. That way, you get to experience the sport from a different point of view. We divided every session into different topics, including the rules of the game. Um, then we're going to do some passing drills, some shooting drills and techniques. We're going to talk about dribbling, rebounding, offense, moving without the ball, defense, fitness-specific basketball drills, and finally, we're going to cover a little bit of the mental aspects and attitude. Again, we're going to have 16 sessions, and our Zoom coach is going to be Kyle. Many of you met him. He's a great basketball player. He is passionate about the sport, and he's going to guide you through this new and hopefully interesting experience. So I welcome you, and I hope you're going to have a great time and learn a lot from our course. Let's take a look at the first section of this first lesson, and it's the rules of the game. I imagine that all of you, or the majority of you at least, will know these things, but let me repeat them just in case some of these aspects are foreign to you. First of all, let's talk about the outside perimeter of the basketball court, which is 50 by 94. So 50 feet is the regular width of the court. 94 is for the pros, while for high school, 84 feet is used. You also need to be aware of what a baseline is, which is right below the basket, the two basketballs. A sideline, where of course the benches are placed, or just outside the sideline. The free throw line, which is at the end of the key or the paint. The three-point line, which is obviously the big arch that you should all know, and the mid-court line, where the center circle lays. So these are all names that we will use a lot. So we just want to make sure that you are well aware and confident in using this type of nomenclature. All right.
Hey everyone, welcome to After School Basketball Advanced. I'm Coach Kyle, and I look forward to helping you with your basketball skills. Today we're going to be talking about the three different types of passing, and that's bounce pass, chest pass, and overhead pass. So here we'll be giving you some examples. With the first one, which is the chest pass. So the key components of the chest pass is you're pretty much holding the ball, you're gripping it with two hands, you have a strong grip on the ball, and you're starting at your chest, and it's like a push-up motion. You want your hands to go in the direction of your target. So obviously, if my target is directly in front of me, I won't want my hands to move left because the ball will be released toward the left. The bounce pass. You would use the bounce pass instead of the chest pass. The chest pass is probably the simplest way to get the ball to a teammate, but it's the most easy pass to intercept for the opposing team. For the bounce pass, if you're passing into traffic, you can hit passing lanes, which we'll talk about in a later video. It's easier, we'll just say that it's easier to get the ball through traffic to your teammate. All that we'll demonstrate is the overhead pass. Key reasons to using an overhead pass is if you have an opponent directly in front of you and you want to toss the ball over them, out of their reach. So the opponent will typically have their hands up, and if you have a teammate that's behind them and you want to get the ball to them, you can toss it over the reach of your opponent and into the hands of your teammate. A pass of a medium to a long distance, and you can generate more power. This is probably the easiest pass to get if you want distance on your pass. The different types of shots just a quick overview. First one is layups. Next we got jumpers, the jump shot. We got a 3-point shot, and we have free throw. So I'll give a quick demonstration of each. But just before that, a layup is the shot you'll use when you're closest to the basket. You can use it. You can go off the backboard or just straight into the. Or you don't have to use the backboard. Free throws would be if you get fouled, you go to the free throw line. A jump shot is just any shot that you're taking that's not a layup, where you're raising up to shoot. And a 3-point shot is when you're shooting behind the arc. So I'll give demonstrations right now. So a layup, dribble, jump shot. We'll say this jump shot's going to be in the paint. I would take 2 free throws. That 3-point shot is behind the arc. Alright, so there you have it. Quick review. Different types of shots. We have our layup, jump shot, free throw, and 3-point shot. Overview of dribbling. So dribbling, it can be very technical and very complex, but it's also simple at the same time. You have the first, we just have our right and left hand, just pound dribble, where you only dribble with that hand. So this is called a right hand pound, left hand pound. And it's important to be able to use both your right and left, because if you can only dribble with your dominant hand, which for me is my right, it's very, as a player, I'm very one-dimensional because I can only go to my right. So when you can use both hands, you can go both ways, and you're more of a threat to score. So there's the left hand pound, right hand pound. There's also the crossover, which essentially is you're switching, transferring the ball from one hand to the other. So crossover from right to left, crossover from left to right. And so there's pound dribble, crossover dribble, and third one is between the legs. That one transferring from right to left between the legs. This one from left to right. This next one from left to right between the legs. And then the last one, which is behind the back. And so behind the back can be a wrap around behind the back or a bounce behind the back. A wrap around looks like this. And the bounce looks like this. Fundamentals, bounce, pound dribble, right and left hand. Crossover, that's the second one. Third one is in the leg crossover, and then we have behind the back, which is the wrap and the bounce. So there you have it. And then another thing that's important. So as we get better and improve our dribbling, a lot of people can be technically very good at dribbling the ball, have amazing control with the ball in their hands. But probably even more important, not just to know and be able to have the ability to dribble at a high level, but also know when to dribble. Because there's times where you need to dribble, and there's times when it's better to pass the ball. We'll talk about dribbling and cover more as the course goes on, but for now, those are the basics. Alright, so those are some examples of some rebounds. So with rebounding, is a very important element and aspect of the game because a second opportunity to score for both teams. So you have offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds. So with offensive rebounds, what it is essentially is shoots the ball and misses, you or another teammate rebounds the ball and has another opportunity to put the ball back in to the basket. A defensive rebound, while we're on defense, and the other team, the opposing team, shoots the ball or lays the ball up, they miss, and the ball hangs in the air and is up for grabs between the two teams. So, and if we recover that rebound, we've secured possession of the ball, and they lost the second chance to score. So, you can see why that's important. Because with the game of basketball, the objective is to score more than the opposing team. And if you have an offense, and if you have more offensive rebounds, which in other words is more second chances to score, and you have more defensive rebounds, which means you've taken away the opposing team's second chances to score, then that can contribute and affect the score.
Let's talk briefly about defending, and before we get into all of those aspects like rebounding, stealing, positioning, etc., we just need to really quickly touch on a very important concept, which is the organization of the defense. And in this case, we have two main ideas. One is the player-to-player or man-to-man marking, woman-to-woman marking, or a zone. So in the case of the player-to-player, man-to-man, woman-to-woman marking, you are basically assigned a player. And in the second lesson, we'll talk more specifically about the positions. But basically, your mark is going to be usually matched in terms of height and obviously position. So there are some players that are taller, like a power forward and a center. So each center is going to mark a center, each power forward is going to mark a forward. Mid heights are usually like small forwards, and smaller players are the guards, which again we'll talk about in the second lesson. So when it comes to man-to-man, woman-to-woman, or player-to-player marking, you are assigned a player and you try to stick to them all the time. When it comes to zone, you are assigned a portion of the court. So back on your defensive side, you're going to line up in different forms. It could be a 1-3-1, a 2-3, a 3-2, and all those things will be explained in detail. But basically, there's almost always going to be one or two players below the basket and at least one or two players along the three-point line. So usually the players that stand outside, so closer to the three-point line, are typically guards, smaller players quicker, and the ones that are under the basket are typically the centers or the power forwards or both. In any case, we'll get into more specific, but again, you have to make the difference between zone, which is covering an area, and man-to-man, women-to-women, player-to-player, where you're marking the corresponding player. Alright, we'll get into more details soon.
I'm going to introduce to you guys a concept that's known as triple threat. So with this, to be an effective on offense, you have to be able to create opportunities for your teammates by passing the ball, to be able to beat opponents off the dribble, and to be able to, if they're taking away your drive, which is pretty much creating scoring opportunities from dribbling, to be able to stop and shoot the ball. So here I'll give you some examples of triple threat. Can create opportunities for their teammates. So this first one is a triple threat passing. So they'll drive and essentially draw an extra defender toward them, which would create an open look and an open shot for their teammate. So if I'm driving, let's say I beat him off the dribble. Another player is forced to step to me and by him stepping to me, gives me an open pass to give to a teammate. And essentially, if they don't step to me, then I have an open shot. The second aspect of the triple threat is beating defenders off the dribble. So when defenders are guarding you, oftentimes, if they respect your jump shot, they'll guard from up close. So you can beat them off of quickness against the basket. This last part, if you're good off the dribble, it'll open up for this next one, which is beating people off the jump shot. So if people respect your dribble, they'll take away your dribble, making it hard for you to penetrate. So, if they take away your dribble, you can jab step, which is a technique that we'll talk about in later videos. Jab step to take a dribble, and if they bite or they're slow to react on your jump shot, you rise up, shoot. If you're good at all three, then you keep your opponent guessing, and you're very hard to stop. That's why triple threat is important.
Talk about the fitness now. And we're going to start with something a little unusual, because when you talk about fitness, you're thinking movement. But today we're actually going to talk about stances. So situations that technically are static or starting positions. So they're not as dynamic, but they will get very dynamic, of course. So offensive stance and defensive stance. So those are very important ways of being ready for both offense and defense. So in particular, the offensive stance is characterized by the fact that your head is over your waist, so you're in a very balanced position, and you want to see both the ball and the rim. So your hands are right here in front of your face, and again, you have to kind of have in your line of vision both the rim and the ball. Your back should be straight, definitely. Your hands are up above the waist, and your elbows are flexed. So we're talking about this position. The weight, obviously, in particular, has to be really concentrated on the ball of your feet. You also want your knees to be at least slightly bent and ready to go, ready to push off. And of course, in general, you have to be very ready to move. Defensive stance has some characteristics that are very similar to the offensive stance. For example, your head is still over your waist, so you're not leaning in any way. You're very centered. Your weight is, again, on the balls of your feet. But differently, now you're focusing on the opponent's midsection. So when you're on offense, you're kind of looking a little bit higher. When you're on defense, you're looking a little lower. So the opponent's midsection allows you to see the ball, the arms, the legs. So you have to have kind of a generic view. Again, you want to have your back straight. Your hands are up above your shoulders and they're wide, just so that you're ready to block a shot or to intercept a pass. Your feet are a little wider than in the offensive stance because you need to extend your motion very quickly, and sometimes and oftentimes you need to cover more with the first step. You're going to do quite a bit of lateral motion, but we'll talk about that later. And of course, you've got to be very ready to move. Let's practice these with our coaches.
So the next segment is on moving without the ball. So in basketball, there's five people on a team, and there's only one ball. So we can show you why it's important to be able to get open when you do, because most of the time you don't have the ball. So we've got two techniques for you today on how to get open when you don't have the ball. The first one is called the V cut. The second one is called the backdoor cut. We'll give you demonstrations right now. The V cut is used when you want to receive the ball moving further from the basket. And it's more to get possession of the ball from your teammate in a safe place. So essentially, with both of these techniques, you'll fake in the opposite direction of where you want to go. So if I want to go right, I'll fake left, bring my defender with me, and then cut to the right. So here's an example. I'm here, the opponent is here. I'm going to fake to my left, and come backdoor cut is the most direct way to a basket as far as a pass. So essentially, my opponent's back is turned, or it doesn't have to be turned, but I'm faking toward my teammate away from the basket, and then I'm driving downhill toward the basket to receive the pass. And typically these passes will be with the bounce passes in the middle of traffic. I'm going to fake to receive the ball toward my teammate, bringing the opponent with me, and off back here. Receive the ball, lay the ball down. So we'll go into more specific and technical aspects of moving off the ball, but here's two examples: the V cut and the backdoor cut.
Okay, everyone, we are finally at the end of our first lesson, and one important section that we like to talk about is the mental or attitude aspect. And today I want to talk briefly about sportsmanship in general. Needless to say that it's very important, and in particular it's very important because you're representing your school, your team. You want to carry yourself as an example. So I want you to think of examples of good sportsmanship and certainly things to avoid. For example, talking back to a coach, talking back to a ref, getting in an argument with the opponent or even with your teammates. During a game, bad behavior is punished with technical fouls and sometimes with ejection. So that's obviously something that we always want to avoid. I'm talking even just the technical fouls, let alone the ejection. Examples of good sportsmanship, of course, include complimenting your opponents after the game on their good effort, thanking the referee at the end of a game, even thanking your coaches at the end of a session and being supportive with your teammates. Again, I want you to think about different aspects of sportsmanship because obviously it's something that is very, very important. And if you're a good sport, if you represent yourself well, if you represent your club, your school, well, you're going to be always well respected and well liked. So let's always think in those terms. All right. I hope you enjoyed the session number 1, and we'll look forward